Hello and welcome to today's webinar, How to Break Down Legacy Silos Between Service and Operations Management, produced by Actual Tech Media and presented in partnership with our friends at ServiceNow. It's great to have you on the webinar today. In addition to learning how to break down legacy silos, you'll also see a live demonstration of the ServiceNow solution in action. Now, before we get started, there's just a few things that you should know about today's webinar. My name is David Davis of Actual Tech Media, and I'll be serving as the moderator. As always, we want these events at Actual Tech Media to be educational. We want to help you to solve your real-world technology challenges, and as such, we encourage your questions. We want to hear what challenges you're facing and get answers to questions about how today's solution might help. So we encourage your questions there in the questions pane of your audience console, and we will be doing a live Q&A session at the end of the event. We even have a best question prize to help further encourage those questions. I'll talk about that more here in just a moment. But first, I want to encourage you to check out the handouts tab there in your audience console. It's there that you'll find a link to download the 3 steps to digital first business growth, a link to a Forbes article entitled The Department Formerly Known as IT, a downloadable checklist entitled The 5 Imperatives for a Digital First Business, as well as a resource on reimagining IT service delivery and operations, no matter what comes your way. So make sure that you download those resources now, and you can check them out after the event. At the end of the webinar, I'll be announcing the winner of the Amazon $300 gift card door prize on today's live event. If you're watching this on demand, of course, the drawing has already occurred. The prize terms and conditions can be found there in the handouts tab. In addition to that, we also have our best question prize for another Amazon gift card. This is a $50 Amazon gift card. Of course, you have to ask a question to be entered into the best question prize drawing. We will be selecting the prize winner and contacting them after the event. All right, so with that housekeeping information out of the way, it's time now to introduce you to today's expert presenters. Welcome to Matt Gowerty, Senior Manager for Product Marketing, Peter Doherty, Director of ITSM Sales, and Evans Nicholson, Senior Technical Product Marketing Manager, all at ServiceNow. Matt, I'm going to first hand it off to you. Take it away.
I want to thank you all very much for joining us for today's webinar. Before I get into the content, I want you to think about your IT organization and what you're dealing with today. When you think about technology and IT, does your organization have one team doing service management and maybe another team doing operations management? When we talk to a lot of customers across the world and a lot of prospects across the world, we tend to see a lot of organizations have those very distinct silos. And one of the challenges we tend to see is by having those silos, it becomes much more challenging. And what we want to focus on is really how you can break down some of those key legacy silos between service and operation management and really get much more value across your entire technology organization. And again, think in today's world, what are you dealing with? A number of incidents that you're dealing with on a daily basis, are they going up or down? For the vast majority of you, I assume they're probably going up. Whether it's things like we went from working from a physical location to COVID made it work from everywhere and work from home. So things that people were used to dealing with all of a sudden changed dramatically. And also the number of incidents skyrocketed as well. Or as went digital transformation, some great capabilities, some new initiatives to go digital transformation, but that also probably increased the number of incidents coming in. But then how many of you are doing more in the cloud world? A lot of us might have started in the traditional on-prem world where everything was pretty much static, things stayed the same. But now when I go to the cloud, there's some pros and cons. On the pro side, it's very easy to add resources. Anybody can do it. It can be fairly cost effective. But on the con side of it, it's all kind of the same things. While it's easy to add resources, anybody can do it, it's hard to keep track of it. And things that used to be very stagnant, didn't change much, all of a sudden they're much more dynamic and become much more difficult for organizations, including DevOps, so they make changes along the way. Again, those become more challenges that we deal with. And then in terms of time to market, when your organization, is IT thought of as a thought leader and a business driver, or are they more of a cost center? And we see organizations really trying to struggle with that is they have time to market pressures. They have to do things faster, more effectively, have faster response. Again, COVID was a popular one. It came out and we thought about digital transformation. Before COVID, we were probably thinking of initiatives in 2, 3, 4 year time frame. All of a sudden that went to 2, 3, 4 months, 2, 3, 4 weeks for organizations, so that the speed that we had to make changes we dealt with. Now customers are expecting that, and our partners, our staff, our executives are expecting it as well. In addition, many of you are probably facing more governance requirements. Trying to track things, keep documentation, prove audits becomes another big challenge. On your IT teams or technology teams, how many of you are fully staffed today with the right people, with the right expertise? Again, for a lot of us, we've had that challenge of trying to keep up. People have moved, people have resigned, doing different things. We have understaffed, capabilities on our team, so it's hard to keep up. We have, unreliable legacy systems. We've had tools that weren't built for cloud capabilities, or things we've been doing for a long time that we have had for decades, but they're really not reliable to handle some of the new requirements. And also we have additional security threats coming on board we have to worry about. Employees and our customers and NPS scores and satisfaction are also becoming more and more challenging. So again, what's happening in today's world is things are getting much more complicated. We thought it was bad before, but as everything becomes happening, everything changes over time, it's becoming much more complicated. And two of the key things that people tend to deal with are kind of IT service management and IT operations management. In a traditional approach, most organizations historically have a service management arm or a silo or a group, and an operations management arm or a silo or a group. So they might report up into the same CIO or VP, but on day-to-day capabilities, they're typically two separate teams. And the challenge with that is, how do I make those work together? So on the service side, we think about things like incident, request, problem, change. And then trying to make those work. So I have different tools, different processes, different manual things I've tried to do, whether I'm doing emails or spreadsheets, and maybe I'm trying to build some custom integrations to make services work. So my service team works in their own silo using point products, point tools, or manual processes, and tries to cobble those together. And conversely, on the operations side of the house, I'm doing things like discovery and visibility, understanding what's on my infrastructure, service mapping, understanding how the configuration items work together and build services prioritization, trying to maintain my CMDB and keep it up to date. And on the discovery side, again, we probably have a lot of different tools out there doing discovery, manual processes doing mapping, multiple spreadsheets, multiple databases for CMDB. And again, what we try to do is we try to have processes and integrations to make those work. So standalone on service on one side, operations on the other, it's hard today. But then when you think about, oh goodness, if I have an incident or a problem, or I have to deal with the change, shouldn't these two work together? Well, yeah, they should work together. So what do we try to do? We try to put them together kind of in a manual process, custom integration way as well. So again, that's really one of the challenges that we tend to see is we do a lot of integrations, a lot of manual processes, trying to bring these things together. And if you've been in the industry long enough, if you're lucky enough, you spend a lot of time, you spend a lot of money, a lot of resources building these custom integrations. And what happens when one of your key partners all of a sudden does an upgrade? A lot of times those integrations break. You have to go back and try to refix them. So that becomes a major challenge for organizations today. And what we're doing with ServiceNow is we're really trying to help our customers bring these two together very intuitively to give you a single unified platform for service and operations together. So what we call service operations at ServiceNow. So not only do I have the leading solution for incident, request, problem, change, also for discovery, CMDB, service mapping, all on one platform, all integrated workflows and pre-built capabilities as part of the solution. Why is that important? Instead of forcing you to go out and figure, okay, what tool do I need for incident, problem, change? What tool do I need for discovery? What tool do I need for service mapping? What do I do with my CMDB? How do I tie these together? We do it for you on that single platform to make it much easier for your organization to really get the key value and to get the key capabilities delivered to you much faster to give you a faster time to value. And we talk about that fast time to value, really by bringing your technology services and your operations together, you really have that foundation for a digital first business growth. So whether I'm trying to expand technology services while reducing costs, or if I'm trying to deliver extraordinary employee experience and resiliency or I'm trying to drive technology best practices and optimize processes, these are all things you can do within the ServiceNow family for service operations. Now, drilling down just a little bit more detail into each of these, give you some examples. At a high level, first is kind of expanding your technology services while reducing costs. With a single cloud platform across the entire IT estate, you can save a lot of money in a couple different ways. One is you can maybe consolidate some redundant tools that you might not be needing anymore, or might be overlapping over a course of time and you really couldn't take apart before. Now I can bring those together to reduce the cost. In addition, I can also make my employees much more efficient because now I have one common GUI, one common interface, one common look and feel for everybody. So I don't need to train everyone on multiple different tools to keep them efficient and keep them going and what's happening across the organization. Second one is really automating a lot of these core processes and services, both on the service management side as well as the operations management side. Things like incident, problem, change become much more effective. Automate a lot of those processes to become much more effective. And we go through today's presentation, Peter and Evan are going to give you some examples of exactly how we can do that from an automation point of view to get rid of those manual processes and those challenges you're dealing with today. And third is getting that visibility of resources, applications, and assets. When we think about discovery and visibility in the CMDB, CMDB is one of those things we tend to hate. People think it doesn't really work. It's hard. It becomes a very challenging thing to deal with because, again, typically we don't focus on it. We have multiple discovery tools, different ways of bringing things in, manual imports, APIs, maybe build some custom scripts, redundant information, out-of-date information becomes a challenge. Now, again, if you have the capability of having visibility all on a single platform, bringing information in, whether it's on an agentless side or an agentless-based approach, I can bring everything in, I can bring in third-party information as well, and aggregate it on a single platform. Again, that's going to really help you reduce costs, but probably more importantly, expand those technology services. Do what you want to do by having the right information on one platform, automating a lot of the processes, and really having all the visibility you need to have to understand exactly what is happening across your entire IT infrastructure. And the second key pillar is really going to focus on delivering extraordinary employee experiences, resiliency, and productivity. When we think about things like leveraging AI-powered user experience, when we talked about the incident explosion before, how much of your team's time is spent dealing with basic repetitive tasks over and over again? Password resets, right? It's always a fun one. Becomes a challenge because, again, while it's not the most complex thing in the world, it typically requires every time an incident comes in, one of your IT staff has to deal with it. But now if I have AI-powered capabilities like with virtual agents, for example, I can do a password reset myself. Why is that important? Makes my employee more productive because it takes less time, makes them happier because they're not waiting, and my IT team, they're not doing those basic repetitive tasks. Now they can focus on more critical things that they want to do across the entire organization. So leverage AI to really do a lot of incident deflection and improving your response time on trouble tickets and problems your customers or your employees or your staff might be having. I mentioned before kind of the resiliency and things we have to do for change throughput. By having this capability, I can do a lot more change much faster, but also more importantly, with much more control. So I can get changes done easier, faster across the organization by leveraging a platform to do that across my team today. And then improving your productivity. Now, I listed staff productivity here, but staff can mean a lot of different things. So your IT staff, again, wasting that, eliminating those wasted manual processes. More importantly, taking your probably tightly confined staff requirements and let them focus on more business impacting issues. What do you want them to do, not what they have been doing over time? Or making your end users more productive so they're not waiting for things, they're not waiting for responses along the way. That can really improve productivity as well across the organization. So between those two aspects in terms of reducing costs and empowering technology services and delivering extraordinary employee experiences, resilience, and productivity, ServiceNow can really help you do that. And it's really a perfect time to turn the call over to Peter, who's going to walk through how ServiceNow can help you deliver modern service operations and give you some ins and outs of exactly how ServiceNow does it today.
Hey, Matt, that was pretty impressive stuff, and thanks for covering all that stuff off. It's very interesting the way that the DevOps has come together a long time ago, and now we're seeing much more service and operations coming together. So let me just talk you through about the journey to service operations, especially the ServiceNow way we look at it. Now, most of you will be probably thinking about ServiceNow as how you can modernize your existing service desk, move to the ServiceNow platform, have that great experience, the ability to be able to automate all those different processes. So that's where the journey generally starts, where you will have your service desk. It'll have the great experience and the automation across the incidents, the problems. When people ring up the service desk or go through a self-service portal, it will then route it to the service desk themselves or the teams that need to do work on it. Where it's a request, it'll go through an automated fulfillment process. If something's gone wrong, it'll go through an incident, a problem, change process, all connected together, same look and feel on the same platform. And connected to a lot of those processes will be your configuration management system and your configuration management database that will store all the information. One of the things that is really, really important when you start thinking about configuration management is that you need to make it a trusted source of truth. Now, I've seen many organizations using different tools where they'll import data from different systems, and it doesn't become the trusted source of truth because it's not up to date. So what many of our customers will do as part of their first phase of doing this, they will start bringing that credibility to the CMDB. Make it trusted. If you need to make decisions about risk and impact around changes, you know that the data there is current and accurate and will give you an assessment. If you need to do incident or problem where you need to look at what the services are, or what the underlying infrastructure is, you can trust it. So this is done through discovery, giving visibility of your business services. Now, one of the unique things about ServiceNow and our discovery is that we use machine learning to look at the discovered data and start using that machine learning to map out business services for you. Now, anyone who is here on the call that have sat down and gone through a manual process, or even using semi-discovered data to map out business services, you will know how difficult and time-consuming this is. So just imagine doing your discovery of all your infrastructure, your assets, and being able then to take that machine learning to look at the way that they form the business service. Not only being able to learn the way they perform the business service, but also being able to present it to you with a high level of confidence that this is what this business service will look like. Also, because it's got asset information, it knows personal information about people and what they're using, which will come into play a little bit later. And from those service maps, if you've got monitoring tools, you will generally be able to see if something's affecting them. Now, the challenge if you just have raw monitoring tools coming in, all that traffic, you'll see lots of things red all the time. So that's a little bit of a challenge. So in a moment, I'll talk to you about how with ServiceNow you address that challenge. So this is the fairly basic first step to going to your maturity of moving to service operations. This, at the moment, though, is having a lot of the traffic coming in through human means, either going through a service portal, sending emails, ringing up the service desk. Just imagine if you could change the dynamic of that traffic. Just imagine instead of that work going to people, that work can come in through a virtual agent. A virtual agent that is a platform facility, so any of the other capabilities on the platform can use it. That virtual agent that can have 50 different people ask for something, and through using natural language understanding, being able to understand what the intent that they want, what is the outcome or the service that they want delivered. Now, if it's something like a request, say my laptop is broken, I need a new laptop, and you're going to the virtual agent. The virtual agent is personalized for you. If you say I want a new laptop, it'll go to that asset inventory and the CMDB, know what type of asset that you already have, and it'll make a suggestion whether you need a new type of that. It's personalized. If there's a service outage happening, when you go into the virtual agent, it'll tell you about it, and it'll come back and ask you if you want to be reminded when the business service is restored. and then delivering, because you've got that structure, that automation, that great experience, then being able to put solid SLAs across it to deliver the experience that the customer wants from a fulfillment or an incident resolution perspective. But the virtual agent won't be able to solve everything. So there will be an importance in being able to pass it over to a human to do it. Now, that could either go as to a live agent where all the context of the conversation is passed across, which means you don't have to repeat all the things that you've been asked before, or it could be created into an incident that needs to get to a resolver team. Now, most organizations have a huge problem with ticket bounce, the time it takes to get to the right team. Just imagine if that same machine learning on the platform that could discover those services could look at patterns in previous incidents and use those patterns to predict with a high level of confidence to get it to the resolver team first time and then to a person working on it, reducing ticket bounce, reducing mean time to repair, and delivering an even better experience. Reducing a lot of that human traffic coming in. But when it then does come to a human that they've got to work on it, just imagine that they have an immersive experience where as it is assigned to them and they open the record, they see all the information that we have about it. As well as having all that information, machine learning starts working in the background to look for previously solved incidents that could solve this one. Just think about all your people in support who are searching the first 10 minutes of an incident. They're searching for how to fix it before. Just imagine that machine learning is doing that for populating knowledge, populating previous resolutions. And where that previous resolution has an automated response, being able to run a playbook to go and automate that so they don't have to have the tribal knowledge how to do that. So this is one great way to reduce and deliver a better service instead of going into the humans coming in through the traffic. A large portion of most organizations will have a great deal of machine generated traffic. If you're sitting there thinking, oh my gosh, I've got too many monitoring tools, you're probably right, because there seems to be proliferation of them. So remember we talked about that machine learning? Imagine taking that machine learning and looking at the events that you have coming in and applying patterns for that, being able to recognize similar type events and being able to go and look at what the possible root cause is, being able to look at traces, being able to look at metrics about the normal behavior of a business service, looking at log analytics, learning from all those things, and then looking what a probable root cause could be. Just also imagine then if you have things where you don't have patterns before and anomalies can be detected. This order system seems to be slowing down from its normal behavior of writing order confirmations. That's an anomaly. Don't know if it's good, don't know if it's bad. Taking that anomaly, taking those machine learned things, and then being able to package up a probable root cause. If you can automate it there, automate it and fix it. If you can't, get it to the support people with the automated root cause, the probable root cause, so as that if at any stage it goes into a major incident, the time to gather the war room, get the correct teams together and start collaborating is greatly reduced. If you want to run the collaborative war room, run it in Teams, run it in Slack, record all the information that's happening and accelerate the time to come up with a fix. And if that fix needs to go through an emergency change processes, run that emergency change process straight off that to a resolution, bringing the stakeholders, bringing all the resolvers into the one place to do that. So this is all the way that service operations delivers high resilience of business service, how it delivers great experience to your employees and customers and gives you great efficiencies and productivity gains by having all this information in one place. Though a lot of that is still semi-reactive. There'll be a time where you want to stop and take a breath and look at how you go and do and improve your processes. This is where the deep analytics of the platform will be able to expose to you where you've got processes that have got bottlenecks, where they've got KPIs you want to improve, and then run these as proper continual improvement programs, as as part of the platform, assigning tasks for people to go and improve these, and then having a closed loop back to see whether you are actually improving them. And then imagine where you can sit back and look at all your services from a digital portfolio perspective, their performance, the cost, all those sort of things. This is where the world of service management and service operations is coming together. And this is a journey that a great deal of our customers are already embarking on, seeing great benefits. I trust that you've seen where the benefits and what happens within service operations. I'm going to pass back to Matt so he can take us out with a couple of finishing thoughts. Thank you very much. And I'll be on the online for the question and answers. So please pop things up into the question and answers queue. Thanks, Matt.
Well, thanks, Peter, for walking through ServiceNow and service operations and really the value it brings to you and to our customers out there. I want to turn the call over to Evans next, who's going to walk through kind of a live demo of the solution, really show you ServiceNow in action and what it can do for you from an ITSM and ITOM perspective, and more importantly, bring them together into service operations.
All right, thanks a lot. So what I'm going to show is an example, a demo of let's call it a composite customer story, where the company has an online ordering service called Porsche Online, and their employees use that to order things for their day-to-day work, and there's an issue with this service. So we're going to troubleshoot this scenario, and we're going to experience this and troubleshoot through a couple different personas. One is going to be the customer, or in this case, the internal customer, people using the service, and then we're going to look at it through ITSM. We're going to see some virtual agent conversations. We're going to see that piece. And of course, we're going to see ITOM. We're going to see a lot of the AI ops features that you can get just to show an end-to-end real-life scenario and give you an idea of what all is possible. First, let's start with Amelia Bryant, our service desk operator. Amelia is seeing a flood of new tickets entering her queue. From one of the tickets, we can see ServiceNow Predictive Intelligence at work, identifying 19 similar high-impact incidents. And Agent Assist is recommending we open a major incident based on this grouping. And if we drill down further, we can get a great view of the impacted service, and we can see we have one critical incident open. And looking at the timeline, we see more activity recently than in the past, which is a further indication of an ongoing issue. There are 89 tickets open for this service alone, so obviously something bigger is going on. So this is a quick look at the ITSM workflow, but let's take a look at ITOM and see what our ITOM team is doing in parallel. Now I'm going to switch over and look at this as Roberto Hopper, who is on the operations team. At Roberto and Amelia's organization, these are separate teams handling the two responsibilities, but this could easily be the same person depending on how things are organized. Roberto starts on the operator workspace and sees that the order status application is in a critical state. Here we can see that ITOM Event Management has combined a group of related alerts, making it easier to troubleshoot as one event. We can see a number of alerts coming in from many sources, and notice that this list includes alerts from other vendor solutions. This is one example of what we mean when we say that ServiceNow is the platform of platforms. The first alert that came through is from Health Log Analytics. HLA, which is part of ITOM Health, continuously monitors logs to identify any anomalous behavior. This is predictive AI ops at work. I say predictive because you can see this HLA alert came in several minutes before alerts from the other sources. Changes in logs are great preemptive indicators of issues to come. In essence, what we're seeing is a timeline of events around a service degradation or failure, and it all starts with HLA. So let's take a look at this HLA alert. The on-screen mouse over gives us context into what we're looking at. There is a sudden anomalous increase in the number of logs as compared to the baseline. Remember, what's important is not only what's in the logs, things like failure, resource not found, fault, things like that, but also the amount and the size of the logs. And that's what we're seeing here. Now we'll go back to the group alert and see if we can help Roberto determine root cause analysis. In the details pane, we'll scroll down to find the primary alert in this group. It looks like we have a disk space issue on a Windows server, and you can see here the related CIs and criticality. In the essence of time, I'm going to skip right to the root cause analysis conclusion. But if I wanted to, Roberto and I could look at the metrics section to get an in-depth look at stats and performance on this Windows server, as well as the associated applications or services. But luckily, root cause analysis has done a lot of that math for us. And here we see two probable root causes of the service issue. The bottom one appears to be a planned DevOps change, and the top one is an unauthorized change. With the information he's seen so far, Roberto decides to officially trigger a service degradation. This will inform the employees who rely on the order status process and the Porsche online service that there's an ongoing issue. Nora Griffith is an employee who uses the order status application called Porsche Online in her day-to-day work. She's having issues completing her work, and so she's going to check in and try to get some help. Remember, even though she's using this from the ServiceNow web interface, she could also use Microsoft Teams, Skype, Facebook Workplace, or other collaboration platforms. Let's just type in the summary of the issue. And thanks to the natural language understanding model, Virtual Agent can pick out keywords and phrases and suggest the right workflow. In this case, Nora's team has configured a set of additional questions to help troubleshoot the different areas related to the ordering system. Now Nora has confirmed that there is an issue with the order status process, which is used in the Porsche Online service. She doesn't need to open up a new incident because she can already see that there's a ticket open. This is what we mean by deflection. Alerting employees that there's an ongoing issue helps stop the inflow of new tickets, allowing service operations teams to concentrate on troubleshooting and fixing the issue instead of managing more and more tickets. Now let's continue by looking at things as Roberto Hopper, a member of Nora's IT operations team. Now from the operator workspace, as we saw before, the order status service is in a critical state. So let's go back into the service, and then I'll expand out the group alert. And let's go back into HLA, this HLA alert, and look at things in a little more detail. Now, looking at the anomaly section, you can see there was a 358% increase in the number of events in the last hour. That's pretty significant. So let's do a little more research. And then below that, you can see a breakout of what's actually in the logs. Now, categorizing logs like this is really helpful because, let's be honest, who has time to carefully review event logs these days? Right? I mean, let's just take advantage of what machines are really good at. And they're really good at determining patterns and recognizing patterns. And that's what we're seeing here. This is another great example of AI operations at work. Now, if I go into the view surrounding logs section, we can get a better look at what HLA has discovered and examine these logs in a little more detail. On the first line, we can see details on a suspect log associated with the Windows host x42. Opening up Log Viewer allows us to really dive deep into these logs and understand what we're seeing based on what was triggered by HLA. Now let's go back to the group alert. Now speaking of machines recognizing patterns and helping us troubleshoot, let's click on probable root causes, and we can see another example of this. Two recent changes are flagged as possible causes of the issue we're seeing with the order status service. The bottom one appears to be a scheduled change by Roberto's DevOps team, but the top one is unauthorized, so let's take a look at that. Scrolling down, we can see that in this emergency change, someone has changed the SQL trace flag to true from false. This is very helpful when troubleshooting SQL, but sometimes this can cause disk space issues if you forget to turn it off, because logs are much larger when this is enabled. There's one additional step we could perform to take a look at the logs. But in the essence of time, I'm going to skip to Roberto's conclusion that disk space is filling on the SQL server, and that's what's causing a cascading effect to the order status service. Roberto is using all the information within these pages, within the ServiceNow platform, to reach this conclusion. Let's go back to the group alert, and I'll show you how we can trigger the fix through Flow Designer directly from the ServiceNow platform. First, Roberto decides to bring up the Agent Assist function to look for helpful articles related to disk space. Here's one related to clearing logs on a Windows server. Seems appropriate, right? So let's attach that to the ticket. Roberto will put in a note about his findings, giving some insight to the team into what he's thinking. Now let's open up actions so we can actually fix the issue. That's the whole point, right? We're trying to fix the problem. Now this is one of my favorite things about the ServiceNow platform in this scenario. In this case, with Flow Designer, we actually have the tools to reach out and fix issues on affected CIs, which is great. Without such functionality, we'd still have to manually remove logs, expand disk space, things like that. Now, clicking on the Run Remediation button, the platform actually has a pre-built workflow to handle this situation. Now, as I scroll down in the main group alert, you can see all of the associated alerts have been closed because the issue has been addressed. You can see we cleared out about 2.5 gigs of space by running the remediation. And here's Roberto's note with the KB article attachment. Now let's go back to the operator workspace and check the status of the service. Order status is no longer in a critical state. All right, that concludes our demo. Now, just as a reminder, we've seen just one example for a composite customer. If you'd like to learn how we can help with your specific needs, please contact us and we can come up with a customized solution. And hopefully you've seen how these capabilities translate to real values. Thanks a lot.
Great, Evans. Thanks a lot for walking through that demo. Now, after seeing the demo that Evans just went through, I want to highlight 3 examples for you of how ServiceNow customers, and really most importantly, how they achieve some incredible results by using ServiceNow and service operations. First, the LCBO, or the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, is an Ontario government enterprise and agency, and it's one of the largest buyers and retailers of beverages across 1,500 locations across all of Canada. And the LCBO saw a massive increase in incidents and tickets when it shifted away from the traditional brick and mortar approach to a much more multi-channel and digital approach. And since most of the employees who work in stores and warehouses, they don't have that full access to a laptop and desktop, so mobile access became a very critical aspect. And the LCBO is using ServiceNow today to really create an intuitive self-service portal called LCBO Now, that is even available on mobile devices. One of the key results we've seen is that the IT organization has deflected more than 50% of case tickets through the mobile app, because now the customers can actually look at the knowledge resources and solve problems themselves. So it really gave us some great value. A second example is Finastra, a worldwide financial organization. And they were challenged with out-of-date and incomplete information across many of the different locations across the world. They're really trying to solve many problems. They also had a bigger push to cloud, which I mentioned a little bit earlier, which was making it even much more challenging for them. And with the combination of ITSM and ITOM as part of Service Ops, Finastra was able to identify not only 100% of their IT assets, but it could fully audit those across 115 worldwide locations. And probably more importantly, by having all the right information in the CMDB and understanding all those different key components, the organization greatly improved speed and time to resolution, reduced a lot of manual tasks, and provided over $350,000 in savings annually by leveraging ServiceNow. And the final use case is that Globalilla is a worldwide travel leader. And before ServiceNow, their IT team struggled with those siloed tools that we talked about a little bit earlier between service and operations management. And they really tried to tie those together or cobble them together with a lot of manual processes and custom integrations. Instead of wasting that time and effort with their companies and with their inefficient processes, they were able to leverage a lot more automated workflows to reduce the time to resolve incidents by more than 89%, and became 44% faster in fulfilling services. And again, these are just 3 examples of how leveraging service operations in a single platform is really helping our customers today. As you think about ServiceNow, why you should consider using ServiceNow, a couple key things to think about. One is just our overall market leadership. When you think about ITSM and some of the ITOM capabilities, we have almost half the entire market from an enterprise space from an ITSM point of view. So again, really a leader doing a lot with customers across the globe. In addition, the analysts, you look at Gartner and Forrester and Omni and IDC and other analysts out there, really give us high praise. And our customers also really highlight some of the key things that we do. And you can see a lot of our case studies and success stories as well in terms of what we can bring. So again, with the market leadership, the analyst praise, and really the value of our customers, we see all of our customers being very happy with their solutions through ServiceNow. Now, we went through a lot of the reasons, what are some of the challenges going forward, how ServiceNow can help. And a lot of people might think, I maybe don't want to go. What's the pain? What's the challenge? Well, I don't do anything. And there is some cost and risk associated with doing nothing. So when you think about what we talked about earlier, slow innovation, trying to go out and roll things out quicker, have more speed to market, solve business problems, that becomes much more challenging if you have those disjointed legacy tools. In addition, that poor resolution and collaboration. If you have those silos between service and operations, things are going to get worse. It's become much more challenging for you. In addition, as most of you are probably doing a lot more in the cloud world, if you have a traditional legacy approach, that really wasn't designed for a cloud-first digital service model or work from anywhere. So again, the things you used to be doing might not keep up with what you want to do not only today, but also in the future. In addition, some of that reactive firefighting is a big pain point for organizations. That untrustworthy, inconsistent data has different views becomes much more challenging. And then probably most important is some of those service impacts and outages. If you have manual processes, you have custom integrations, all of a sudden the amount of uptime, the ability for your employees to do work, the ability for your customers to buy services from you, the ability to work with your partners becomes much more challenging. So again, while you're thinking about what I'm doing today versus what I'm going to do in the future, you really want to think about how you can improve some of those key aspects. I want to thank you very much for joining us for today's seminar, today's webinar. In addition, please feel free to go out to our website and download any of our other on-demand webinars. We have this one in case you missed something you want to share with a peer or learn about some other capabilities within the ServiceNow platform. At this point, we're going to take some time for Q&A, so feel free to put in your questions in the chat feature, and we'll answer as many questions as possible, time permitting.
All right, excellent presentation, really cool demo. Thank you so much. I brought back in Evans, Matt, and Peter to take your questions here live in our Q&A panel. Let's see, lots of great questions coming in. If you have a question on your mind, now's the time to get it in. We do want to help you to solve your challenges out there around service and operations management. So first question I'll take, this one here is going out to Matt, I believe. They're asking, or they say they've been hearing for a while about this. What's changed recently?
Well, I think the biggest thing that's changed for most customers has been kind of the transformation that we've seen from a digital perspective. So first people were kind of doing digital transformation, and then adding in the COVID aspect that really made a big impact for organizations, where all of a sudden their plans went from 2 to 4 years to 2 to 4 months, 2 to 4 weeks. And more things are happening. In addition, we've seen the change of people going, for example, from primary offices out to home offices, where all of a sudden the incidents were exploding as well. So I think kind of across the board, as more things are happening, get some of the challenges we talked about earlier, whether it's the cloud computing, more digital services, more challenges, more security threats are some of the big things that are changing, and really making customers think how they're going to deal with the new environment today.
Excellent. Let's see, another question. This one is for Peter. They want to know if we can't afford data scientists, is it still possible to make your solution work?
This is quite a common question, because everyone knows how expensive and how hard to get data scientists are. So one of the real things that has changed to make this much more real for most organizations is our use of machine learning. And the machine learning is tuned as part of a black box that is parameter driven across the platform. So you don't need to have expensive data scientists. You can use the API and data driven tuning mechanisms to be able to make it within confidence bands, within prediction rates, all those sort of things. So don't get caught up in needing data scientists. We've removed the need for doing that.
Absolutely, yeah. It sounds like this could make it easy. While we do a few more questions here from the audience, I'm just going to bring up this poll for everyone out there that says, what additional information would you like about the ServiceNow solution? And we do want to get your feedback here on this poll. If you'd like additional information, maybe you'd like to get a personal demo or try this for yourself, we do want to get your feedback. So we'll leave that up for the remainder here of the Q&A. Let's see, next question. This one is for you, Matt, and it's kind of a lengthy question here from Mike, who says, what do you recommend is the best way to get buy-in from so many different departments that can't see the bigger picture and don't want to release control with their technology and processes?
That's a very good question. We could probably spend a few hours answering that question between Peter, Evans, and myself, I would think. But I think there's two ways. One is, kind of the negative way first. If there's ever a problem, with the service, or, customer stat drops, or there's major issues, that's a perfect opportunity to kind of get people thinking about how to change. Because there's usually an issue they're trying to deal with. You're trying to be a little bit more proactive and try to get ahead of the curve, and hopefully there'll be no issues across your organization. It's really sharing some of the capabilities and trying to take away some of the fear of, you're trying to take away control or power for somebody else. For example, You have the SREs who are focused on doing things very quickly, kind of a DevOps environment with this. And a lot of times they always think about control and kind of oversight being a very bad thing because it'll slow it down from their perspective. But there's a lot of great capabilities within the platform that you can actually enable SREs to be more effective and help them do their jobs even better while still maintaining some of that control. So I think the best way of doing it is having an open dialogue, with your teams and, kind of what goals you're trying to achieve and, what you're trying to do as an organization, and be completely open and honest with yourselves and try to think, okay, we might have done it this way for the past, 3, 5, 15, 20 years, but if we want to go forward, what do we want to do and what's the best approach, and think of what's the right way of doing it. So I think about your kind of the goals, what you're trying to achieve, and find the best ways of doing it, and making sure everybody's voice is heard so they don't feel like they're getting left out.
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very wise advice. I like that. Let's see. Here's another question. This one comes from Bradford. He's wanting to know, is there a minimal or optimal learning period for ServOps, AI, ML? Is more data better? Matt?
Yeah, I'll take that one, Peter. I saw another one come in as well, kind of asking with this. So typically, more data is always better to give you more information to see what's going on. But I think one of the key things that, kind of Peter touched on and we tried to highlight in the demo within the capability is the ability to identify anomalies within the infrastructure and the operations component, without you having to tell what to look for. For example, a lot of tools out there might say, hey, look for a certain parameter. If you see this occurring, raise a red flag. If all of a sudden I say, hey, my number of servers have grown or my usage has grown above, X%, send me a red flag. That might work, but also you might want to think about what happens if something you're not planning for happens. So, for example, if all of a sudden, if I used to having 300 people access a service, and now I have 0, that's a big anomaly. Something's probably happening. So again, by having some of the intelligence built in and anomaly detection built in for you, can really reduce that time and give you some of the capabilities. So it's kind of a hybrid answer of, again, more data tends to make things better and give you more capability to see what's going on for history, but also the ability to look for anomalies that you're not typically looking for out of the box is also a key value add.
Absolutely. Let's see. What about this one for you, Peter? They want to know, how exactly do you delete workloads, like you said?
Well, this is an interesting one because from a service management perspective, everyone always talks about deflecting work away from the service desk. But when you really think about it, the service desk is handling a lot of probably high volume, lesser value work that's coming through. And the stuff that they can't do, they then hand off to much more expensive level 2 and level 3 people to start looking at those things. When I talk about deleting those workloads, I start looking at using machine learning to expose patterns that of the stuff that's leaving the service desk, look for grouping of those patterns, and looking how you can automate them so it doesn't have to go to a specialist to do that. I work with the large logistics and transport organization here in Australia, and one of the challenges they have is that they're mailing distribution centers. If something goes wrong with someone's SAP rights and they can't do something in the system, trucks stop rolling. What they used to have to do is get on and put a service request in to get it fixed. And that went to an SAP administrator who was doing their SAP job, and eventually they'd go and change it. By putting in a virtual agent, by putting in automation that can not only run automation across the ServiceNow platform, but through API-driven integrations, it can go and run automation against other platforms. That person's able to go into a virtual agent, have a conversation with it. It's personalized. It knows who that person is. It knows about the systems it uses, and it can then kick off an automated process to go and reset that user's rights within the SAP system. So that workload doesn't go to a level 2, level 3 specialist. All those types of workloads are the way to delete them from going to those people. It then frees up those people to do what they're really paid for, and that's their day job.
Right. And that's the most important thing, really, getting back to work, doing what they are paid to do. So thank you for clarifying that, Peter. Here's another one for you, Matt, and I'm sure you've heard this one before. Are you really talking about automating people out of their job here?
Now, that's probably a great follow-up question. What Peter just answered. It's the purpose is not to automate people out of the jobs. It's really to help people focus on what they should be doing. And what we tend to see from organizations, across the world, especially in today's environment, IT teams are really struggling to keep staffing properly, keep staffing levels properly, served where there's a number of people or expertise. So what we don't want to do is have highly skilled, highly trained people doing a lot of repetitive tasks over and over again, or having incidents assigned to multiple people. For example, I can tailor it to a specific person, or I can automate it kind of to a less experienced person to handle some of those tasks and become much more effective. So while it's not meant to kind of reduce people and reduce jobs, it's really meant to make them more effective doing what they're supposed to be doing, so you can focus on kind of business initiatives and some of the drivers you want to do as IT, and not be thought about as a cost center, for example.
Absolutely, yeah, and that's something every company out there needs: more focus on what makes the most money, or whatever the mission is of the company. Do what is most important. So excellent. Well, it looks like we are starting to run out of time here in our webinar slot. We've covered pretty much all the questions, I believe. One final question I wanted to ask you, Peter, and that is, what do you recommend people do to get started with ServiceNow?
Gosh, that's a very open question. So and once again, it really depends what challenges you're starting to look at. The thing is, when you start with ServiceNow, you should take a holistic view of what you want to deliver as part of your first phase. So the service management side is very important to get your processes in place. And many organizations will start with service management. The key thing is that if you're starting with the service management side, you must have that discovery component in there. One of the things I said in my session is that many organizations don't trust their CMDB because it's not up to date, it's not automated. So think of service ops when you start, and that's the service management side, your instant problem, change request, service catalog, major incident, all those sort of things. And by having the discovery of all those assets into the CMDB, by being able to create service maps, by having machine learning look at the traffic coming through, it means that that uplifts all the capability levels of those other different processes. So look at it holistically. Don't look at it as an operations. Don't look at it as a service management. Look at service operations, having your service management firstly being supported by the discovery component, give you a trusted source of truth to make decisions about what you want to do with the business.
Excellent, excellent. Well, wise advice. I think that's a great stopping point to wrap up today's event. It's been really great having you all on. Thank you so much, Peter, Matt, and Evans. Excellent presentation and demo. And of course, thank you to ServiceNow for supporting the event today. Before we go, I want to remind everyone about the handouts tab. There's some great resources there. 3 steps to a digital first business, or growing a digital first business. The article there from Forbes, the checklist around autonomous service operations, and reimagining IT service delivery. So make sure that you check out those resources. Matt, Peter, and Evans, it's been great again having you on. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Hope you enjoyed it.
And of course, thank you to ServiceNow. Visit servicenow.com for more information. And don't forget about the poll question there. I will leave that up while I announce our Amazon $300 gift card prize winner. This one is going out to Billy Christensen from Washington. We'll reach out to you, and then we'll also be reaching out to our best question prize winner. Thank you, everyone, for all the excellent questions as well. I hope you learned a lot on today's webinar, and I hope you have a great day. We'll see you next time. Bye-bye.